Welcome to Money 911, the podcast where we bring you the best strategies and insights to navigate the financial world with ease. I'm your host, Kris Miller, and today we have a guest who's no stranger to the complexities of the investment industry. With over 25 years of experience as a bond trader and portfolio manager, he has earned the prestigious CFA designation. But what sets him apart is his unique approach to helping businesses not just survive, but thrive in challenging times. Join us as we jump into the secrets of reducing taxes, cutting expenses, and boosting profits, all without taking unnecessary risks. So get ready to unlock the door to higher profits, risk-free. Please welcome my guest, Bob Nissim. Welcome, everybody, to Money 911, where we talk about health, wealth, and peace of mind. And I'm really excited you've heard the fabulous intro about Bob, and I just want to get right into it because there's so much uncertainty, and the economic landscape is crazy. And, people are in businesses, they're seeking ways to save on taxes. And, this really is some of the lowest times of taxes in the whole, story, right? So, Bob, go ahead and give us some practical strategies to show people how they can minimize these tax burdens with their businesses.
Sure. So, there's a lot of, to start with, let's talk about the tax code for just a moment. Okay.
Okay.
40 odd years ago, when I was young in the investment industry, one of the things I did in my operational responsibilities was look into certain tax laws and things like that for the people that I worked for. And there was two books, and they were about this thick each. And that was the U.S. tax code. Well, today you would need probably 6 or 8 of those books that size to get through the U.S. tax code.
That's right.
So to think that any CPA or any team of CPAs could have that all like ingested and memorized and categorized and able to go through it to do the best they could for you in terms of saving you every penny on your taxes is just an unreasonable expectation. Partly because they also change every year. There's
Right.
always adjustments.
Yep.
So one of the things that I do is I work with a company that has developed a proprietary technology that allows their software to delve into a business's expenses, things like their building expenses, the servicing on their rented spaces, the money that they spend on property taxes, on hiring employees, on a number of different things. All of those have tax benefits tied to them, and very few people take advantage of them. Just like one of the ways that businesses can get a tax break is if they develop any new technology for anything. If they're spending money on building a better mousetrap, a better widget, or a better AI, all of those have tax benefits attached. The time spent, the hours spent, the money spent is all available for tax refunds and tax reduction. And sometimes it comes in the form of a hard check. So at the end of the year, it's not just you've got the next year's taxes reduced by an implied $100,000. It's like they're going to write you a check for 6 figures, and you're going to be able to go out and use that for things that have been very hard to do here in the last few years during this pandemic.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't even know that, but I'm not a I'm not a tax. I did know. I'm national speaker, and I went to Washington D.C. and spoke to the Financial Officers Association there, and I was shocked because I had to, quote the IRS code back, and this was a few years ago. It was 74, I had to get the number right, 74,000 pages, that book. This is like 7 years ago, okay?
Okay,
So
so didn't have enough volumes.
didn't have enough volumes. And then that's not even chapters. So if you can go to your local tax, they're not getting it. You're missing all
No.
that. Plus, what do you think, Bob, with the inflation, which is another form of tax, right?
Yes, it is.
And and you could see it. It's not like, you have to watch it on TV or anything, but the businesses are worried on the impact on their bottom line. So what steps can they take to navigate through the challenges, right? And
I'm
how
sorry. Can you restate that, please, Kris?
with the inflation becoming a growing concern, most businesses worry about the impact on the bottom line.
Right.
So what steps can businesses take to navigate through these challenging times to safeguard their financial stability?
That's a great question too. So there's a number of areas where businesses have money leaking through their hands, almost like a bucket with holes in it. Just a couple of the ones right off the top. Merchant processing. So for businesses that use merchant processing, that is one of the biggest holes in your buckets because it creates a lot of holes. There's no standardized report. So every company designs their own report and they redesign it about every 6 months. Just so if you get to the point where you can read the line by line charges, they mix it up so you can't read it anymore. So one of the services that one of the companies I work with provides is an audit. They don't have you change your merchant processor. They simply look at what the merchant processing has been. They look at your contract and they go into it and they say, look, the contract says you should be charged X based on what your line items were. That should have been, let's just say, $100,000. Well, they charged you 130. So we're going to get you a rebate for the 30. And we're going to hold their feet to the fire so they don't do this again. We're going to look at it every month to make sure that it's accurate. Yeah. So that's one of those areas where expenses just go to die. Another one is disability insurance, group for not, I can't think of the name right now. Businesses pay the insurance in case somebody gets hurt on the job. Workman's comp, sorry. Workman's comp. Very oftentimes, about 60 to 70% of companies are overcharged on workman's comp. I have a company that provides a service that audits that and can go back as far as 5 years and get rebates for sometimes 10 or 20 or 25% of the premiums paid for workman's comp. I also have a company that provides services when it comes to account payables. A lot of money is just given up in the form of rebates that are available. And there are thousands of vendors out there that will take a card and give you back 2 or 3%, like a Discover card. And companies in the United States are still very heavily processing paper checks. So that's very expensive. And it's a great way to lower the expense of processing those checks and the overhead that comes with it, plus gain some efficiencies to the point where you can actually turn this into a profit center. All of these services that I am talking about are also done on a contingency basis. There's no fees up front. So if there's no success in the audit process and we come up with zero return to you, costs you nothing but the time. And the companies I represent put in all the time. It's very light lift for the companies that we're working with.
Contingency-based consulting, that sounds intriguing, right? That's smart.
Well, right? It's what made me feel really good about representing them. Yeah. Because to me, fees are charged when people want to get paid and maybe not necessarily do the work. I've seen that too much in my lifetime.
This is good. That's good stuff for people. That's
and I want to make sure that if I've said to them that you may get this and you may get nothing, if it's nothing, it's not going to cost you anything. And if it's something, we share in the wealth, which most people are happy to do. I mean, if we were to just as an example, provide somebody with an extra $100,000 for their bottom line, a $10,000 or $20,000 fee wouldn't be that big a deal. And it just all depends on what service it is. Obviously, some of these services are very simple and they're inexpensive to provide. And some of them are very labor intensive. So the expense is a little bit higher, but it's commensurate with the work that's done. And everybody ends up winning when it's done properly.
It's just like looking at your credit card statement every month. I mean, I cannot believe I do that I find stuff that I didn't do that. I didn't buy that. And so that for a business to do the same thing, it's amazing how much you could save there, right?
Right. Yeah. And the bigger the company, the bigger the savings.
Exactly.
And that's not to say that small companies don't have savings.
Mm-hmm.
Companies with a couple of $1 million in total revenue in something like that merchant audit, if it's a retail company and they swipe cards all day long,
yeah.
It could be a fortune.
Totally. Yeah. That's great. Well, the value of the dollar keeps fluctuating, and, businesses are finding a challenge and a lot of letting go. And now we have the other side of the planet doing the BRICS, right? And the currency, and they're trying to put in the digital currency. They're trying to change the system to a one world money and the one world health and all that, right? So as that all changes, what effective measures, what can businesses do to make wise financial decisions, to be able to be resilient in the way that everything is changing? Because we have to alter what we've been doing. It's not, things are shifting, so we're going to have to go with
rapidly.
And rapidly. That's
the hardest part.
That's it.
It really is. And because of that, right. The answer to your question from my point of view is being open.
Okay.
You've always got to be open, and you've always got to be kind of reviewing information. You can't be one of those people that, I read the tax code 3 years ago, or I read this about, foreign exchange 3 years ago, or I read this about the stock market 3 years ago, or I read this about, foreign exchange. Doesn't matter what happened 3 years ago.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't matter what happened 3 months ago.
Right.
That's how quickly we're changing because of technology. Right.
Yep.
And, that whole Bitcoin thing kind of shows that.
Yeah.
I mean, that had a whole life cycle within just a couple of short years.
Yeah.
It went from no one ever hearing of it to everybody being involved with it because it was making people millionaires, to people literally losing their shirts, and that market collapsing in on itself.
Yep. So, that's why I'm on the safe money side, because
you and me both.
Especially right now. We live in California, so I live in a fire area or earthquake area. So you have your 911 bag, right, with your water and your flashlight, your evacuation kind of kit. Yep. Have it in your car or ready to go. Well, it's the same thing with the money. That's why this podcast is Money 911. It used to be called Ready, Set, Retire. It was like kind of laid back, but now it's like I feel like I'm running in front of a fire that literally, and this is what it's not hard to see that there are millions of little sheepies about to go off a cliff.
Yeah.
And if you turn on main cable news, they're just like, everything is fine, keep going that way, keep going, right? And everybody's like so busy, they don't take the time to learn about the safe money. So maybe you could, as inflation looms large, right? And the business owners are concerned about preserving the values of their earnings. Maybe you could unravel some of the unconventional yet practical methods for safeguarding wealth in an inflationary environment.
Well, and I think you're exactly right. Not only is it inflationary when it comes to just the straight investment of your money, but it's an inflationary time for taxes. I mean, when you and I were small children, the top tax bracket was like 70%.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. Today, the top tax bracket is under 40%. And a lot of people, the majority of Americans, not maybe by money production, but by economic level, majority of Americans are in a 15% tax bracket because they've got stuff going on. They've got kids, they've got daycare, they've got this, they got all of those things are write-offs. They
Yep.
get to be 65 years old, taxes go back up on in terms of rates, which is really the only way they can go unless they somehow figure out how to have a flat tax, which I don't expect to see in my lifetime. But absent that, there's going to be tax inflation. So one of the things I think people need to do is looking at investing with tax-free instruments.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to do that is with some of the insurance, life insurance products that are available today. Permanent life insurance, indexed universal life. I mean, to use those as assets for your business to do things like buy-sell agreements and that kind of thing just makes a whole lot of sense because it can help on the personal side and the business side.
If I knew back then, you know, I didn't learn about it, and I've been in practice 33 years about the IUL and the tax-free income, and I learned at 58. I got mine at 64, but I'm in elite health, so you know, I work at it, you know.
Yeah,
But
you look it too. You look great.
oh, thank you, I appreciate that. And what it does is it allows people to have tax-free income. You can actually roll over your qualified money. That's the big tax bomb. People think, oh, my 401k and IRA. And they think, oh, you know, I have this much money, but they don't realize they're going to be paying the ordinary income. So from
Ordinary
40,
income. And if they get to the RMDs, the required minimum distributions, they have no luxury of timing.
nope, nope,
None. They
none.
are dictated on a schedule. They've
Right.
got to take the money
That's right.
now, and they've got to suffer whatever that tax consequence is.
That's
So if
why
they're
you want
if
to
they're still
plan
working, which a
now.
lot of people are still doing in their early 70s at this point. I mean, I talk to a lot of people
Mhm.
that are looking for things like final expense life insurance. And I ask them, so are you retired or on disability? And it's like, no, I'm still working. And they're 72, 73 years old. You know,
Yeah. Oh,
they
yeah.
would be earning income and in a retired or required minimum distribution time. And so taxes will be taking a big chunk of that. And so that's
Yep.
expensive.
Most people, I don't know what the stats are, if it's 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, feel that they're going to be working past the retirement age. That's, I mean, a huge part, right?
Absolutely.
And so then it's all about learning how to have tax free or tax deferred income and getting right a bottom on your money so you don't lose your principal. You
Right.
only catch the upside. So that's what we're talking about. They're, you know, index universal life annuities. It's not a one size fits all, but they're customized. So when you're working with a company, right? You'd be surprised how many companies don't even have key man insurance.
Right.
That shocks me. I mean, the big companies.
It really is shocking. I mean, especially when you talk about some of these privately held companies. It's one thing for, you know, a publicly held company or a company owned by the employees or whatever that might have hundreds or thousands of employees. So all of that risk is diversified. But in a company, you know, there are plenty of companies out there with 1,000 employees, and yet it's owned by two people
Yeah,
or two families,
right.
right? And both families are relying on the other because half the expertise lives in this family and half the expertise lives in this family.
Yeah,
And if one of those passes without a successor to that spot in the business, you
right.
know, it's like my wife could step in and be the head of the company, have the title of CEO. That doesn't mean she knows how to run the business on a day-to-day basis,
Exactly.
right? And that's really where the key man insurance or the buy sell agreement is going to help families and
Right.
businesses on both sides.
Right. And succession planning, when you're 20, it's hard to imagine what it's like when you're 40. And when you're 40, you can't even think about 60, let alone 80 and 100. So it
Right.
goes supposed to go to plan for 100. You'd be surprised how it changes your mind. I'm planning to 120.
It's a good plan.
It changes your mindset.
It's a
But
good plan.
right? But the point
Yeah.
is that if you learn how to situate everything that in tax free or tax deferred, then you literally, and put a floor on your money so you don't lose your principal, you literally can double and triple your principal over time. And
Yeah.
and not lose a dime in any market risk. So I'm a big fan of that, and I know that you can show companies how to do that succession planning.
Absolutely.
It's
Succession
so
planning. And the other thing that's really important that companies don't do enough of is exit strategy.
oh, there you go. Exit
Right. And
strategy.
I
Yeah.
can't claim to be an expert in exit strategy, but what I do know is that if you go back just 10 years, right,
Hmm.
when we were in a booming economy, a lot of people had businesses that they thought they were going to be able to sell and get out of. Well, you look at this next generation of people in business, they don't want to own a brick and mortar business. There are no buyers for those people that are owning a fourth generation, you know,
Right.
car lot or mechanic shop or retail store or whatever the case might be. They're not going to be able to sell it, but how are they going to get out of it? Right.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
that's a really important part of what needs to be talked about.
It needs to be talked about. And it's the same thing of, with you, it's, micro and macro. I mean, look at the country, you know, spending more than it has. And it's the same thing with you. Each family does the same thing. And then what happens if
100%.
something happens to me?
Yeah.
So we have, and that's why I'm like healthy money, happy life. Let's have a happy
Yeah.
conversation. Money doesn't have to be scary, right?
No, it doesn't. And it's really more simple than people think, right? Because for instance, you were talking about foreign exchange and the many currencies in the world and so on and so forth. It's like the very bottom line is foreign exchange value is all about balance of payments. As our debt rises and our balance of payments goes more and more out of balance, the value of the dollar drops. As the value of the dollar drops, our buying power drops, inflation rises. It's all one vicious cycle. And
Right.
so when you plan like you're talking about out 20, 50 years, you're able to smooth all that out.
Right. And that gives peace of mind, right?
100%.
Healthy money gives you peace of mind.
Yes, it does.
Oh, well, Rob, we could go on and on and on. It's really,
Of course.
it's just easy conversation, and hopefully people are like, hey, take a little time out of your life. I call it a retirement planning holiday, meaning just take time out and learn about what we're talking about. And people, you can reach out to Bob, tell everybody how to get in touch with you.
Sure. I appreciate that. My best email is bob@todaybenefits.com. And my phone number is 925-639-6579.
Right. Okay. Now, one cherry on the top you want to leave everybody with of a call to action or something that they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Call me because the conversation is free. The analysis of where you are today costs you nothing. I am not an arm twister. I'm not somebody who's going to pound people over the head. I am a service provider. I want to help people. And so if you call me, we can go through the exercise of exploring where you are today and where you'd like to be tomorrow. And we can put out a plan or a map that's going to help get you there. And if I can help you do that, great. The rewards will be there. And if not, it's not going to cost you anything. So please give me a call. I'd love to have a conversation with you. That's true for you, and that's true for anybody you know. I am here to help.
There you go. And make sure that, you guys that have these companies that you do some of these compelling things that we've been talking about so that you are protected and your employees are protected and your family is protected. And
Most importantly,
all right. And that's healthy money for a happy life. Thank you so much for being here. There you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this eye opening episode of Money 911, where we explored some truly captivating insights into the world of business finance and tax saving strategies. Remember to implement these practical tips and stay tuned for more episodes filled with engaging conversations and actionable advice. If you found this valuable, don't forget to share it with your fellow business owners and colleagues. Until next time, I'm Kris Miller, and together we'll conquer the financial challenges and unlock the path to higher profits risk-free. Stay tuned for the next thrilling installment of Money 911. There's so much to learn about healthy money. I hope today's discussion brings you one step closer to securing and protecting your future. So you can get started on the right foot, go to meetwithkrismeller.com and schedule your free financial fitness strategy session. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to Money 911 so you don't miss our next episode, which includes health, wealth, and peace of mind.